Discover the heartbreaking moment when a cowboy's offer to help exposes an amazing transformation. Jake squinted against the relentless Texas sun as he drove into town, the familiar rattle of his old truck echoing against the silence of the sprawling landscape. Each bump in the dirt road felt like a reminder of how far he'd drifted from the dreams of his youth. Managing the family ranch had been a once-cherished legacy, but the droughts gnawed at him like a relentless predator, chipping away at every ounce of hope. Frustration simmered beneath his rugged exterior, a quiet storm brewing in the deep creases forming around his eyes. His heart ached with the weight of expectations, battling against the fading visions of a life he once imagined for himself. As he neared the market, he noticed Lily, her homemade lemonade stand a bright splash of color against the bleakness of his thoughts. The sight of her, a young girl in threadbare clothes with a fierce determination written across her freckled face, brought a wave of nostalgia crashing over him. She reminded him of Lucy, his younger sister, whose dreams had withered alongside their family's misfortune. Jake pulled over, the gravel crunching beneath his tires, feeling like a shift in fate. "Hey there, miss. Selling lemonade?" Lily's smile was a glimmer of sunlight amidst the growing shadows in Jake's mind, but her laughter cut short as she spoke of long hours and multiple jobs just to support her mother. In that moment, Jake saw a flicker of ambition in Lily that mirrored the passion he once had. "You want a job?" he blurted out, almost on instinct. It felt like a lifeline, both for her and for him. As they began working together on the ranch, Jake found himself astonished by her perspective. Through her lens, Lily captured the stark beauty and harsh realities he had become numb to. With every photograph, she revealed the emotion, stories of labor, heartache, and fleeting moments of joy flickering through the endless stretch of fields. Yet each click of the camera echoed in Jake's mind, a haunting reminder that he, too, had stories that were fading into shadows. The thought only deepened his internal conflict. Was he merely an artifact of his past? A stepping stone in someone else's journey? Then came the day when Lily's photographs graced a local gallery, sparks of excitement mingling with a thick knot of unease in Jake's stomach. As others applauded her talent, whispers began to snake through the town, talk of how the young girl's success outshone that of the rugged cowboy. Anxiety clawed at his heart. Was he still relevant? In helping her, was he somehow losing himself? Those feelings twisted together, rising like smoke in his chest, leaving him gasping for clarity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With voices buzzing around town, Jake felt a surge of pressure threatening to crush him. The air thickened with doubt as he questioned whether lending a hand was truly the right choice. The storm within him swirled, dragging his insecurities to the forefront. What if mentoring her meant losing a part of himself he couldn't reclaim? The line between loyalty to his family and the bitter taste of envy blurred, leaving him standing on a precipice of despair. As the sun dipped below the Texas horizon, casting long shadows over the land, Jake was filled with a sense of impending change, the uncertainty a tangible presence in the cooling air. Their relationship teetered, both struggling to understand their place in each other's unfolding stories. Tension thickened, waiting for the moment both would confront their fears, resilience against judgment, leaving Jake staring into the vast unknown with anxiety clawing at his throat. Would he emerge transformed, or would dreams slip away into the gathering darkness? The following morning, Jake awoke before dawn, his restless mind tangled in a web of thoughts. The silence of the ranch was an echo of his own solitude. It felt constricting, as though the walls of the world were slowly closing in around him. He climbed out of bed, the floorboards creaking beneath him like skeletal whispers. Today would be different. He promised himself that he would try to reclaim a part of the man he used to be. As he stepped outside, the crisp air greeted him like a forgotten friend. He looked to the horizon where the sun was struggling to break free from the night's grasp, painting the sky with hints of orange and pink. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope sparking deep within him. He grabbed the old camera that had belonged to his late father, a remnant of simpler times when laughter echoed around the ranch. With each click of the shutter, Jake took in the world around him, observing it through a different lens. The way the light danced across the dusty fields, the subtle movements of the cattle as they grazed, everything felt alive, as if he was rediscovering the beauty in brokenness. There, behind the camera, a new resolve began to take shape within him. He felt like a storyteller, just as Lily had been, a custodian of memories captured through images. Yet, every photograph was a reminder of the disparity between him and Lily. Was he merely imitating her journey, left standing in her shadow while she stepped confidently into the light? That question clung to him. Self-doubt knotted in his gut. But was this not his own path of transformation? He was witnessing the world through her eyes and recognizing the muted vibrancy of his own experiences. By mid-morning, Jake found himself at the local diner, sitting quietly at a corner table. The familiar hum of conversation surrounded him, but his heart sank when he overheard a group of ranchers discussing Lily's recent success. "That girl is the future of this town," one remarked. "And what about Jake? Just fading into the background, it seems." The words sliced through him, sharp and relentless. Instead of responding with anger, his heart bore the weight of an unexpected realization. Every moment he had supported Lily was not a time lost, but an investment in something greater. The dawn of clarity began to lift the burden of envy, revealing what he truly desired, to not just be part of someone else's story, but to write his own alongside hers. Armed with this newfound determination, Jake returned to the ranch, where he found Lily arranging her photographs for a new project. "Lily," he said, drawing a breath to steady the racing pulse in his chest, "I want to collaborate on something together. Let's showcase our stories, your lens and my words." Her eyes lit up, the spark of creativity igniting between them. Together, they could blend their worlds, transforming their individual struggles into shared triumph. It felt like the first step on a path to reclamation, not just for him, but for them both. But as they began to brainstorm ideas, Jake's mind drifted toward the murmurs in town. The whispers were not mere gossip, they were hints of a confrontation looming on the horizon, challenges they would face together. It was no longer just a matter of his identity, but also a test of their collaborative spirit. And amidst this encouragement, unease lingered. Jake's confidence teetered, unsure of how the townspeople would respond to this partnership. But one truth rang clear in his mind. The time had come to forge ahead, both to face the judgment of others and to confront the shadows of his past. As they dove into their new project, Jake felt a mix of excitement and dread. This venture would demand vulnerability, partnership, and the confrontation of his innermost fears. Could he uphold his promise of personal growth in this joint endeavor? Would they both rise above the whispers or find themselves swallowed by them? The answers remained hidden in the distance, and as he took a step forward, Jake felt the winds of change gathering strength around him. Jake and Lily spent the next few days immersing themselves in their creative partnership. They transformed the dim corners of the ranch into makeshift studios, repurposing old barnwood and scattered equipment to breathe life into their vision. Jake found himself moving more confidently, the anticipation of progress sparking moments of clarity amid the chaos. The lens of the camera now offered him a realm of possibilities, as if each click propelled him further away from his past turmoil. But that simmering anxiety beneath his excitement never quite faded. Each captured moment felt steeped in potential, yet he wrestled with the gnawing fear of vulnerability that came with exposing his work to the world. He often caught himself second-guessing the words he chose, as if they might somehow betray the deep insecurities he tried to mask. In their discussions, Lily offered her insights with an earnestness that made him feel like he was painting a canvas with both bold strokes and delicate shades. "You have your own unique voice," she encouraged. "Don't drown it out. Let it shine." The sincerity in her voice sparked a fleeting warmth in him, a reminder that their collective stories mattered, that they held power to shift their narratives into something vibrant and alive. Yet, the buzzing gossip in town loomed like a storm cloud over him. He could almost hear the whispers echoing through the streets, taunting him about being merely an accessory to Lily's success. In moments when the self-doubt began to creep in, he would hold firm to Lily's words. but the shackles of fear weighed heavy on his heart. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted everything in warm hues, Jake found himself unable to hold back the tide of his thoughts any longer. "What if it's not enough?" he asked, vulnerability slipping into his tone. "I worry they'll see me as just a background character in your story." Lily paused, her own face thoughtful as she processed his words. "Jake," she said gently, her voice steady and reassuring, "what we create together is a tapestry made from both of our threads. Your words have a power I find in few others. They evoke emotions that can resonate with people. Remember, storytelling doesn't belong solely to one, it's a partnership." The truth in her words settled within him, mingling with the reservations that tugged at his heart. This idea of duality, of their stories intertwining rather than competing, sparked a new determination. A flicker of resolve ignited deep inside him, questioning whether he had ever truly allowed himself to believe in his potential. What if he could find strength not just in collaboration, but in his individual contributions alongside her brilliance? With newfound resolve, Jake began to spend long hours crafting words that flowed onto pages like fluid movement. He believed his experiences, the joys, the pain, the regrets, could create a narrative just as compelling as any captured image. The more he wrote, the more he uncovered layers of himself he thought were forever buried beneath the surface. However, an unexpected challenge arose when a local gallery owner reached out to Lily, eager to showcase her latest work. The prospect filled Jake with both excitement and dread. Was this the moment they'd been working toward? Or would it all crumble under the weight of public scrutiny, exposing his fears in an unforgiving light? As the opening date loomed closer, Jake faced a pivotal choice. He could step confidently into the spotlight alongside Lily, or retreat back into the shadows where he felt safest. It terrified him to think about what rejection might feel like, as if it would validate every doubt he harbored about his own worth. But Lily's unwavering support floated in the back of his mind, challenging him to confront the creeping uncertainty. The night before the gallery opening, he took a deep breath, pen poised over paper, determined to inscribe his story in that fleeting moment. But little did he know, the challenges awaiting him were far greater than he anticipated. As he penned the final words to his piece, a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts, sending a shiver down his spine. It was the moment fate had long been building toward, one that could change everything. What awaited him could either solidify his newfound resolve or force him to confront yet another facet of his complex identity. And as he opened the door, the world around him shifted irreversibly, the winds of change whispering promises of challenge and growth. Jake's heartbeat quickened as he opened the door, the familiar creak echoing in the silence, absorbing the gravity of the moment. Standing there was James, an old acquaintance whose reputation as a charmer masked a more insidious personality. The warmth evaporated from his face, replaced by a chill that slipped down his spine. "Hey there, Jake. Heard about Lily's big opening. Thought I'd swing by and see how you're holding up," James said, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. The easy bravado he exuded felt like bait, and Jake recoiled instinctively. "Thanks, James, but I've got a lot on my plate right now," Jake replied, trying to punctuate his words with resolve. James stepped closer, invading the space that, until now, had felt secure. "Come on, man. Just let me help. You know how it is, right? Standing in the shadows of someone else's spotlight isn't exactly fun." He leaned against the doorframe, an uninvited intruder who had always reveled in the dynamics of power between them. Jake's stomach turned. What was James aiming for? Was it a genuine offering or a veiled attempt to belittle him further? The common doubts crept back, stitching together Jake's insecurities into a tangible cloak of doubt. But he was aware, thanks to Lily, that he was more than just the backdrop in someone else's story. "Not really interested in that," Jake countered, his voice steadier than he felt. He could see the thin veneer of James's persona cracking under the weight of tension. "Suit yourself. You've always been good at pretending." The words dripped like poison, each syllable designed to cut. Jake felt an urge to retreat into defensiveness, but the frustrated determination ignited within him. "Pretending?" he echoed, finding his voice more potent than expected. "Maybe it's time somebody called you out on your facade. Maybe you should consider what you really bring to the table." The shift in energy stunned both of them. James's expression faltered, realizing he encountered something he hadn't anticipated. Jake seized the moment of surprise, feeling a surge of confidence that had previously eluded him. "Listen, you don't get to undermine my journey because you're uncomfortable with your own." Each word resonated like a bell, ringing with clarity. James's bravado faltered, and the sparkle in his eye dimmed, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that had been buried beneath layers of bravado. Jake felt the walls around him start to crumble as he realized that confronting James didn't just illuminate the insecurities coming from outside, it challenged those deeply rooted within himself. After the confrontation, the air was charged with a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. This was the turning point. He could either let the bitterness of past interactions dictate his future or embrace the newfound clarity emerging from this conflict. Rethinking his hesitations, Jake returned to his desk, sitting down with both urgency and hope. Ideas flowed rapidly onto the paper, echoing the power of his recent exchange. His pen moved like a brush on canvas, creating intricate patterns of emotions, reflections, and unguarded desires that had been hidden for too long. Each stroke felt like disarmament, peeling away layers of self-imposed limitations. The clock ticked on, but instead of anxiety, an invigorating energy coursed through him. He was not merely crafting words, he was giving birth to reclaiming self-worth, molding identity with each paragraph. But just as confidence began to anchor itself in his newfound momentum, another knock interrupted him, punctuating the fragile silence he'd built around himself. This time, it was different. The sense of foreboding twisted in his gut, amplifying his curiosity and a nagging sense of dread. What truth lay beyond the door this time? Would it further challenge the resolve he had begun to nurture? His heart raced, hovering between anticipation and uncertainty as he pulled the door open. Each moment felt like a decision that could reshape everything. And as he gazed into the eyes of the visitor, a part of him knew deep down that this encounter would push him further into the depths of his own story, for better or worse. Jake hesitated at the door, the moment stretching taut like a bowstring. The person waiting on the other side was familiar, yet different, a stark reminder of unaddressed pasts that had long lingered in the shadows. He opened the door slowly, revealing the silhouette of a woman whose presence could evoke both nostalgia and unease. "Maria," he breathed, caught off guard. "Hey, Jake," she smiled, but there was a fragility in her expression, as though she were balancing on a tightrope strung between hope and fear. "I wanted to check on you, after everything." It felt surreal, standing face to face with Maria. Their friendship had thrived on shared ambitions and whispered dreams until the accumulated weight of unspoken tensions had driven them apart. In an instant, all the unresolved issues flooded back, the unsaid words and unresolved feelings, like ghosts echoing in a humid room. "What brings you here?" He quickly masked his uncertainty with nonchalance. She shifted, her gaze darting past him into the space where he had found refuge in creativity. "When I heard you were working with Lily, I thought maybe it was time to face some truths." Jake's stomach turned at the implication. Did she see this as an opportunity to rehash old wounds, or worse, to revisit the failures of their past collaborations? The air crackled with unsaid frustrations as memories rose to the surface, eager to erupt. "I'm working hard, Maria. I don't want any distractions," he replied more curtly than he intended. His heart raced, mourning the possibility of an unproductive conversation. She took a step closer, an invisible bridge forming between them. "I get it, Jake. Trust me, I've struggled too, but I'm not here to undermine what you've created. I want to help." At that moment, he felt a deep pull to reflect on the decision to confront James earlier. This was another opportunity, a chance to redefine a connection that had, in a way, tethered him to his past anxieties. The thought of acceptance nagged at him, beckoning him to let go of fear in exchange for growth. "What could you possibly offer that I haven't already rejected?" he challenged before he could filter the words. "Perspective," she replied simply, a quiet strength lacing her tone. "You've been building walls, Jake. Not just around your work, but around yourself. It's time to tear that down." He stood there, vulnerable amidst the shards of conversation, grappling with the weight of her words. Was she right? Had he inadvertently shackled himself to a past that sought to define him? As he considered her offer, the realization clawed at him. He had let go of relationships that once inspired him. "Tell me," he said after a deliberate inhale, "how could we work together again? What if I find that I can't trust you?" "Then we'll build that trust together," Maria stated, speaking with the kind of boldness he had longed to channel himself. It ignited something within him, a fragile flicker of belief in collaboration, in shared journeys. Silence enveloped them, but this time it felt alive with possibility rather than tension. Despite the swirling doubts, Jake felt his pulse sync with the words spoken. He had been so intent on crafting his identity in isolation that the horizon of partnership had dimmed. Just as Jake contemplated the path ahead, the atmosphere shifted. A tingle of anxiety swept in like a storm cloud. The past could easily become a new set of chains. How could he dare to trust again when he had tasted betrayal in the crevices of previous alliances? He momentarily glanced down the hallway, a visceral urge to retreat bubbling within. But in that cluttered office, pain was not going to deter him this time. Instead, he caught a glimpse of the essence of what he desired: growth, understanding, resilience. "I'm willing to try," he said slowly, his voice steadier than before. "But we have to be honest, no more hiding." Maria nodded, a compact smile pulling at her features. "Then we've got a lot of work ahead of us." The charged air shifted as the realities of their resolve began coalescing. Could it be that this partnership would catalyze his personal growth, dig tunnels through the shadows of his prior failures? As they stood there, a nagging realization tapped at Jake's psyche. What if this was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to renegotiate his narrative? He felt hope blossom amidst uncertainty, yet insecurity lingered, a reminder of pressed-down vulnerabilities. And just as their conversation began to dig into the intricacies of their past, another knock rattled the door. This time, it felt ominous, heavy with the weight of unforeseen consequences as Jake turned to face the new visitor. Would this intrusion further unravel everything he was trying to piece together? He steeled himself, ready to confront yet another chapter filled with uncertainty. What awaited him now? Jake's heart thrummed in his chest, each beat resonating with the tensions that swirled in the air. The sudden knock at the door hung between them, an unwelcome visitor looming like a specter over the fragile promise they had just begun to mold. Maria's posture stiffened, and he felt her gaze flicking toward him, a mirror to his own uncertainty. "Do you want to get it?" she asked, tension coiling in her voice. The question caught him off guard. Did he want to keep the door open for whatever lay beyond? Or would he rather plunge deeper into the conversation with Maria, one that had unfurled so liberally after being tightly wound for too long? Anxiety twined with the adrenaline of opportunity, creating a cocktail of fear that gripped him. "Let's see who it is," he decided, an unsteady resolve guiding him forward. He stepped away from the comforting embrace of their discourse, reminded once more of how uncharted territories often invited chaos. With a deep breath, he swung the door open, revealing a figure, James. Caught in the act, the weight of their history clung heavily in the air. The last time they had spoken ended in bitter words, but here he was. The intensity of unresolved emotions pressed visceral against Jake's ribcage. "Jake," James started, his demeanor both assertive and remorseful, a cocktail of bravado and vulnerability. "I need a moment." "Can't it wait?" Jake countered, not bothering to hide the sting in his voice. Memories of their fractured alliance washed over him. If this was a moment of reckoning, he had no idea if he was strong enough to endure it. "Please, just hear me out," James insisted, a thread of desperation weaving through his tone. Eyes flicking back to Maria, Jake felt trapped. Should he usher this confrontation or shield himself from it? Maria stepped forward subtly, offering him a nod of encouragement. Just as he felt himself inch toward a decision, another pang of uncertainty gripped him. Was he ready to revisit the failures that he had vowed to escape? Fine, he relented at last, stepping away from the doorway and allowing him inside, but only for a moment. As James crossed the threshold, a palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere. Donning a facade of calm professionalism had always been Jake's strategy, safeguarding him against unending waves of emotional turmoil. James was a storm he hadn't anticipated today. "I've thought a lot about what happened," James began, his voice uncharacteristically steady. and it's clear that I've played a part in all of this. Jake clenched his fists, the weight of each word striking him more powerfully than anticipated. Was this the admission he had longed for, or merely a calculated attempt at absolution? If you're here for forgiveness, you'll find none, Jake shot back, fueled not just by anger but by the culmination of his growth over the past days. He was no longer the same person who had cowered before conflict. You need to be honest about what we lost and how you let your insecurities drown us. A flicker of shame flitted across James's features, and Jake could feel the room pulsating with the intensity of their confrontation. Maybe I underestimated what you brought to the table, Jake. I was threatened by your talent. Those words hung awkwardly between them, and Jake took a moment to let them sink in. Threatened? It had been a long time since he had grasped his own worth, let alone imagined someone else perceiving it. Could this acknowledgement serve as a bridge to newfound resolution? Thank you for admitting it, Jake finally replied, voice calmer, edged with curiosity. But words without action mean little. What will you do to rebuild? James shifted, uncertainty flickering behind his eyes. I want to make it right, to collaborate again, but I realize it's not easy to earn back trust. As they locked eyes, Jake faced a choice, not just of who he would engage with, but who he would become as a result. This wasn't simply a reunion for work, it was a confrontation with the ghosts of his past. Tell me why I shouldn't just walk away from this, Jake countered, the challenge spiraling out before him. Before James could respond, Maria injected her voice into the conversation. You may have both lost so much, but you can't rewrite history unless you're willing to rewrite your future. In that instant, clarity crackled like electricity. He had not only the power to confront James, but also to redefine his own narrative, intertwining it with Maria's potential influence. Could it be that the manifestation of his growth hinged on the willingness of both men to embrace vulnerability? Jake inhaled deeply, mentally preparing for whatever may come next. What awaited him was still an open question, yet the turbulence felt charged with promise. If the intrusion had served to unearth buried truths, what would happen next? There was no telling if this confrontation would lead him toward redemption or further entrench him in murky waters. But wasn't there a certain allure in uncertainty? With that one thought, he steadied his gaze on James, feeling emboldened by the weight of his own choices. What commitment could he extract today, and would it be enough to foster the growth he so desperately sought? Jake's mind churned, grappling with James's admission. It was a curious moment, the kind that promised both risk and possibility. He mustered the resolve to dismantle the walls he had erected around himself. Trust was a fragile thing, and having once been shattered, it would take an intricate balance of courage and cautious optimism to even consider offering fragments of it back. Why should I believe you? He asked, each word carefully laced with skepticism. Trust isn't a light switch you can turn on just like that. James shifted uncomfortably, but there was a tenacity in his gaze that hinted he understood the gravity of encouragement alongside the fear of betrayal. I realize that. It's going to take time and effort, but I'm here, ready to prove it. Jake's throat tightened. In the depths of his mind, there was a voice that urged him to walk away, that whispered he could find success without James. Yet another part, the one that ached for connection, held him there. What do you suggest? Jake pressed, pushing against the growing tension. Writing a new chapter together? You'd need to take significant steps. What can you offer that's different this time? James took a slow breath, his eyes darting momentarily to Maria, then back to Jake. I want to start by admitting my mistakes openly to those affected. If you can bear with me, I'd like to work with you to address our past failures publicly. I know the path won't be easy, but I'm willing to endure it. Something inside Jake stirred. Public acknowledgement, a risky maneuver, but if executed correctly, it would lay the foundation for a renewed partnership. He'd never thought that James, much less anyone from their past, would be able to confront the damage head-on. It was a bold decision, indicative of personal growth. Okay, Jake agreed slowly. But I need time to think about how we can do this without diving back into old wounds. This isn't just about you and me, it affects everyone around us. Absolutely, James replied, his relief barely containing the urgency bubbling underneath. And I appreciate your willingness to give me a chance. Together we can refocus our energies on what going forward should mean for both of us. We can build something stronger. Jake felt another layer of uncertainty unfurl. Could he truly envision a collaborative future that dismissed the specter of their past? Maria's presence was a grounding force, her steady gaze encouraging him to take the leap. Change often comes from uneasy conversations, she whispered, nudging him to consider the bigger picture. Let me ask you this, James, Jake continued, the pressure of the conversation pushing him to explore deeper. What does success look like for you in all of this? If I were to consider us working together again, what would you need to see from me and yourself? The question hung heavy between them as James weighed the implications. Trust, first and foremost, but also demonstration of teamwork and transparency in what we plan to achieve. If we can create a collaborative space, I believe we'll both find our footing again. They exchanged silent recognition of the gravity in that promise. Jake could see the effort etched across James' brow. This wasn't merely a facade, it was a genuine plea for reconciliation. Fine, Jake conceded, his determination crystallizing with the weight of his choices. But every step we take has to reflect our commitment to a better partnership. I refuse to sink back into that inadequacy. James nodded, a newfound fire igniting within him. Agreed, starting with how we approach our work and our relationship. As Jake contemplated the path ahead, a flicker of hope began to sprout among the uncertainty. This wasn't only about mending a rift, it was a chance to redefine success on his terms, enriching his growth along the way. Yet what lay ahead remained unknowable, an enticing yet daunting prospect. Let's set up a meeting to outline our next steps, Jake proposed, the rhythm of his pulse steadier now. Just as James opened his mouth to agree, Maria's phone buzzed, the sound pulling their attention abruptly. Sorry, I need to take this, she said, her eyes darting to the screen. The interruption felt jarring, unexpected, and somehow momentous. All three men, poised on the brink of transformation, stood suspended in their shared uncertainty about what was to come next. What revelations would emerge from that phone call? Would it threaten their fragile new beginning, or perhaps offer a direction they hadn't anticipated entirely? As Maria slipped out of the room, Jake and James exchanged wary glances. The excitement of change mingled with the anticipation of unknown challenges. Jake was ready to confront whatever came next, but it seemed fate had its own set of twists lined up for them. How would they respond to the unexpected shift now bearing down on them? Jake's gaze followed Maria as she left the room, the weight of suspended anticipation lingering in the air. He could hear the faint murmur of her voice through the door, but he focused on the palpable tension that suddenly filled the space between him and James. It occurred to him how fragile their situation was, hanging in a delicate balance between past grievances and future possibilities. "What are you thinking?" James broke the silence, his eyes searching Jake's. There was a tentative hope in his tone, as if he were testing the waters of this new alliance. "I'm weighing our options," Jake replied, pulling away from the emotional undercurrents. "We can't afford to rush into anything again. This has to be methodical." James nodded, a seriousness settling around him. "Fair enough. What steps do you think we should take first?" Jake leaned against the wall, contemplating the enormity of the task ahead. "I think we need to set clear goals, objectives that we both buy into, a way to measure our progress, not just in metrics, but trust as well." "Right," James said, looking encouraged. "Something tangible we can keep ourselves accountable for. What about reconvening with the team, laying everything out on the table?" Jake scrutinized the suggestion. "It might be beneficial, but we need to ensure that everyone's on board. After all the chaos, I can't let this turn into another disaster." "Then we prepare," James proposed, his voice tempered with a newfound determination. "We can outline our vision together, share it with the team, and then go from there. I'm committed to ensuring this won't be like last time." Something inside Jake stirred at the sense of unity in James' words. Perhaps they could achieve this if they forged a solid plan rather than relying on spontaneous decisions. However, his instincts remained cautious. The deeper they dove into reflection, the more he feared the specter of old mistakes looming over them. "What if we start with smaller goals?" Jake suggested. something manageable to build back trust without exposing everything at once. Perhaps identifying personal objectives could help bind our teamwork and methods. James considered this, looking visibly relieved. That makes sense. If we start small and show progress, we can then bring in the larger picture. It's about building the confidence back, not only for us but for everyone involved. Before they could delve deeper into specifics, Maria re-entered, her expression tense. Jake's chest tightened as he noticed the urgency transformed her demeanor. "Is everything okay?" he asked, feeling the air thicken around them. "I think so," she responded, but there was an undertone of uncertainty that sent a chill through him. It was about the project, a complication. We may need to pivot our direction entirely. Jake's heart raced as focus shifted back to the matter at hand. What kind of complication? Funding issues surfaced. "It appears the main investor has had cold feet," Maria said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her eyes. Generating crisis scenarios in his mind, Jake groaned inwardly. "That's disastrous. We need to counter this quickly. What are our options?" James leaned in, energy sparking in his gaze. "If we can rally support from others, perhaps even leverage our past connections, we might salvage this. It'll take teamwork." "Right. We need transparent communication to avoid fear-based reactions," Jake replied, adrenaline sharpening his focus. In this unexpected moment, he felt the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders. As the trio discussed potential strategies, Jake found himself surprised by a growing confidence, his proactive role igniting a sense of purpose within him. Perhaps this was the growth he had long sought, to lead through adversity rather than retreating into himself. With plans shaping up around them, one thought remained lodged in Jake's mind. Despite the uncertainty looming from Maria's disclosure, his determination to redefine success with James became a personal mission. No matter the outcome, he was resolved to stand by his convictions, test the boundaries of his resilience, and ensure they advanced together. What danger lurked behind that funding crisis? Could their fragile foundation withstand the weight of external pressures? Or would this hurdle expose deeper fractures that were just beginning to mend? Jake took a deep breath, allowing the weight of their impending decisions to sink in. The challenge before him extended beyond mere fiscal concerns. It was an opportunity for personal growth, an evolution of character that he desperately sought. This was not just about salvaging a project. It was about redefining leadership, about proving to himself he could rise above the shadow of past failures. Maria's challenge echoed in his mind like a stubborn echo. The notion of a cold feet investor stirred a simmering anxiety within him. He couldn't indulge in despair. Instead, he chose to channel his trepidation into action. His first instinct was to categorize the situation into a plan. They needed to identify new investors immediately, but who? Who could be convinced to take a risk when confidence in the project wavered? "Let's break it down," Jake said, his voice steady. "We can create a list of potential investors. Who has supported us before? Who might align with our new vision? We can't afford to pitch to anyone just so we can fill the gap." James nodded, an appreciative glint in his eyes. "I agree. We need to be strategic. We want allies, not antagonists." They dove into the discussion with renewed energy. Jake's mind raced as he jotted down names on a whiteboard, feeling a surge of clarity as he articulated his thoughts. Each name represented not just a potential lifeline, but a relationship he had cultivated over time. The process of brainstorming ignited a sense of control that he realized he hadn't felt in years. Yet even as they worked, self-doubt clawed at him. Were these connections enough? Would they truly see the value in investing? He had to confront this insecurity head-on. Jake paused and let out a slow exhale, letting the tension dissipate. "What have we learned from the past?" he asked, pivoting the focus back to himself and James. "This is as much about framing our narrative as it is about the investors. We need a compelling story of why this project matters." James leaned back, mulling it over. "Right. We shouldn't just sell the project. We need to sell the vision. What sets us apart?" Jake nodded, a sense of dawning realization illuminating his thoughts. "We have stories of growth, of advancement we've made individually and as a team. If we can showcase our commitment to change, it enhances our credibility. The concept of storytelling resonated deeply with him. Historically, Jake had often resorted to analytical methods of leadership, charting out figures and data to win people over. This time, he felt an urge to dive deeper into vulnerability, not only to showcase the project, but to share their shared struggles and triumphs. As they debated how to narrate their journey, Maria chimed in, her steady confidence permeating the atmosphere. We can also highlight the growth you both have undergone as leaders. People respond to authenticity, especially if they've seen the journey you've taken. Jake's conviction strengthened. By embracing their imperfect past, they could forge a narrative that sparked connection and conviction in others. It was about embracing the lesson that came with hardship, not shying away from it. Finally, Jake felt the tension inside him morph into determination. Let's craft that narrative together. We can even include personal anecdotes, how we failed, but we learned and grew from each experience. Absolutely, James said, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. As their collaboration unfolded, Jake felt a newfound sense of ownership settling in. This wasn't just a project, it was a chance to transform himself, breaking free from the histories that shrouded his potential. He could emerge from the depths of uncertainty, armed with vulnerability, something genuine that people could feel connected to. But beneath the surface of exhilaration, another thought gnawed at him. What if their personal stories misfired? Just as they articulated their approach, a muted notification pinged from Jake's phone, pulling him from the moment. He glanced down and froze. An email from the main investor, and the subject read, "Final decision." A shiver ran through him. Was this an impending closure or a new chapter? The moment had come. He could feel it in his bones. What awaited them on the other side of that email? Jake sat at the old wooden table, his heart pounding in anticipation as he clicked open the email from the investor. The familiar scent of cedar from the walls enveloped him, making the moment feel almost surreal. As the words unfolded on the screen, a wave of emotions crashed over him. We appreciate your commitment to the project but are unable to proceed at this time. The breath he was holding escaped him in a suffocating rush. Failure had once been his closest companion, lurking in the shadows, but this time it felt different. He felt anger, yes, but underneath that was a deeper clarity. This was not the end, it was another challenge waiting to be faced. "Jake?" Maria's voice broke through his fog. She had seen the moment of despair wash over him and quickly moved to his side, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "What does it say?" "They're backing out." The words hung heavily in the air, but instead of spiraling into despair, Jake felt a fierce determination bubble within him. "Then we pivot," Maria said, her voice steady. "We've got this. We have new connections within the community, new ideas that can draw additional support. Let's not let this setback deter us." James, who had been watching quietly, stepped forward. "I agree. We'll regroup, relaunch our pitch with the stronger narrative we've built, and seek other investors. We have the ability to redefine ourselves in this light." Jake felt a surge of support. Maria's unwavering steadiness and James's shared resolve sparked something deep inside him. The world wasn't closing in. It was merely changing shape, presenting yet another opportunity for growth. "Let's get back to work," Jake declared, invigorated. He reached for a fresh piece of paper, filling it with names and phone numbers of potential investors, reminiscent of the very first time he had embraced his role as a leader instead of a shadow. This was an opportunity to not only share their story, but also to wrap it in the truth of their journey, the trials, growth, and lessons learned. Throughout that afternoon, the weight of self-doubt receded. Each name added to the list felt like reclaiming a fragment of himself. With every phone call they made, Jake felt stronger, knowing he was not alone in this quest. It was about constructing a partnership, one built on mutual respect and shared aspirations. Days turned into weeks, and they faced the harsh reality of rejections from investors who could not see beyond the surface. Each time they faced disappointment, Jake's resolve only grew. They changed their narrative with every meeting, emphasizing the community's need for their project, the kind of story that resonated with investors willing to take risks on intangible rewards. Then, one fateful afternoon, as he walked into an upscale cafe for a meeting, Jake's heart raced with hope. Across from him sat Martha, a well-respected local entrepreneur known for supporting small ventures. They exchanged pleasantries, but as their conversation flowed, Jake leaned into openness. He articulated their passion for the project, the importance of resilience, and the shared commitment he had come to value in his partnership with Maria and James. Martha listened intently, her expression pensive. "What I hear is authenticity, and that speaks volumes. I believe in supporting growth that comes with struggle. I'll consider backing you." As they sealed their deal with a handshake, Jake felt a glow ripple through him, a mixture of triumph and validation. The success was not just in securing an investment, it was a testament to how far he had come. The doubts that once gripped him had transformed into an unshakable belief that he could contribute meaningfully, whether through collaboration or through the creative power of storytelling. Fast forward to the gallery night, where their project found life. The walls were adorned with not only Lily's photographs, but also Jake's words, a harmonious blend that celebrated their interconnected journeys. Standing there in the midst of friends and supporters, he noticed the way the light draped over the faces gathered, and in that moment, Jake understood the equation of success. It was built upon acknowledging both risk and reward. He stepped away from the crowd for a moment, taking it all in, the camaraderie, the warmth, the applause surrounding them. Each echo felt like a piece of himself converging with the community he had thought he lost. He had evolved from a mere participant in someone else's narrative to a central character in his own, embracing vulnerability and embracing the power of collective growth. The whispers of doubt, once loud and persistent, had faded into affirmations of self-worth. He had conquered not only external challenges, but the turmoil within himself. Life may have thrown obstacles in his path, but he had proven to himself that he possessed the strength to rise. Standing there, hand in hand with Lily, Maria, and James, Jake felt a wave of accomplishment. He was ready to write new stories, inspired by struggles, resilience, and the beauty of partnerships. The ranch was no longer a mere remnant of his past, but a thriving canvas for possibilities ahead. This was just the beginning. And now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more seekers of inspiration. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They'll thank you for it.